Good morning and welcome to Coffee with Tom and Joanne. I'm Tom Matthews.
And I'm Joanne Toronto. Today we wanted to talk about windows, and this is a continuation in our buyer agency series on what we see when we walk through houses. And windows are a really important topic because we live in a geography where we have very cold winters and very hot summers. And so your windows are a great way for you to regulate some of that fluctuation with a good high quality window. But I think what a lot of people forget or don't understand is that windows are not the be all end all of winterizing your house. The payback in savings for changing your windows is very long. It's like 15 or more years for you to make that money back. So it's not a quick turnaround. So what we want to talk about is, what do we see when we look at windows? And Tom, why don't you just start with, how do you know if a window is old?
So probably the biggest indicator is that single pane. You see a single pane, and typically when you have a single pane window, you have a corresponding storm window that's on the outside, piece of glass on the outside. That, or you're walking around a really old house and you see the string on the sashes and the wood and whatnot. So that's typically, but I will tell people a single pane window with a corresponding storm, not as energy efficient as a double pane, but not bad. What the kind of the worst thing to see is a single pane window with no storms.
Yes.
And what happens is that those storms, they're energy efficient, but they're ugly. So when people go to paint the house, they take the storms down, and now they've crippled themselves from an energy efficiency standpoint. But it's okay because the house looks better. It's like wearing those wicked high stiletto heels, but you look good, but you can't walk down the street. So I have four sisters. I've just heard that story before. So that's what we want to talk about, is like energy efficiency versus how the look is. So the first thing we look at is the age, the pane. So Joanne, you see a double pane window. What do you look for? What are you talking to buyers about?
Yeah, so old windows are always going to be wood. Okay, they're always going to be wood and subject to wood rot, and we're going to check to see, do they sit nicely in their track? Are they snug in place? Do they go up and down smoothly, like usable? And then when I see a double pane window, I want to evaluate what's the material that it's made out of. Is it a vinyl window or is it a wood window?
Right.
And there's, a wood window that's double paned and a newer technology is going to be a more expensive window than something that's clad in vinyl. But sometimes you have a combination where you have wood on the inside and then it's vinyl clad or aluminum clad on the outside. So what we're trying to do is evaluate, does the window open and close properly? Does it lock? Does it become snug? Do you feel any air leakage around it? So if it's a winter day and you're inside, just simply putting your hands up and around the frame of the window will help you to identify if there's air leakage coming through. A double paned window from 20 years ago versus a double pane window from yesterday, there's not a whole lot of difference between the two. They are filled with low argon gas in between them, and what can happen is the seal can break between the two pieces of glass, and that will impact the cosmetic sense of the window. So it over time you will get moisture in there, it will become dirty in there, and then the window just looks like it's cloudy all the time. And so a broken seal is not the end of the world. It's not going to change the performance of the window in any drastic way, but it's not nice to look at, right? So it's blocking your view. And one thing that you can do is you can change the glass in the window without changing the entire window. And that's something that people do. Say you have a landscaper kicks up a rock with the lawnmower, it hits the window, cracks the window. This happens all the time. You can then just get the glass replaced in the window, and it's not about replacing either the entire sash or the whole window itself. So double pane windows are great, they're energy efficient, but again, making sure that they go up and down, that they don't free fall when you open it up, because you think about fingers being in there and so forth. And a double pane window is really kind of the standard. There are triple pane windows.
Yep.
You don't see them very often in our geography. They are more for the tundra. But you know, at any rate, it's the same type of technology, and making sure that you have a nice window that's snug in its track is probably more important than anything else.
And I want to add, Joanne, two things I love about the modern double pane window is that they have a child safety lock on them. So you can only open the window up 3 inches, which is great if you have kids who want to crawl out windows like my kids. And the other thing I love is they have a tilt-in feature. And the tilt-in feature is awesome for cleaning both the inside and the outside. And that's something we don't see on the more modern, or on the older windows, I should say.
Yep.
Third thing I like about what they've done with these vinyl windows, you can see them on high-end Harvey, Pella, and Anderson windows, is you can have vinyl on the inside, or no, wood on the inside and vinyl on the outside. So you have the beautiful classic wood look on the inside, and then the weather protecting vinyl on the outside. Those windows are just dynamite.
Yep.
So Joanne and I have talked a little bit today about the window. I want to talk a little bit about the window casement, so the trim. So outside the window, you typically have a wood sill, and then you have wood trim around it. And buyers oftentimes ask, like, what happens if that sill becomes rotted? Do I have to take the whole window out in order to repair it? And the answer is it depends. You know, because what you're going to do is you're going to have a handyman or carpenter out, and they're going to take that sill out. They're going to open it up, and they will determine the extent of the damage. If it's just that wood sill, they'll take it out. Our recommendation would be to replace it with an AZAC, like a composite material, so you never have to do it again. A little bit more expensive, but get it done once. But if they get in there and there's a lot of damage, then yes, they'll have to take the window out. They'll have to repair the frame. That happened to me when I first bought my house. We had all kinds of trim damage, and inside the house, the wood was rotted, so I had to take the windows out, replace the wood, and then put it back together. Now we don't have to worry about it. Yesterday, we got gallons of rain, no water in the house. And that's the advantage of having really good quality materials in your home. You know, and windows are important because we do live in an energy efficiency world. We are all trying to go green. We are trying to be insulated. We want to use the most high powered and most efficient tools. And so windows are important. But if you're on a limited budget, one of the things we recommend to people is you don't have to replace all the windows at once. You know, you can replace the ones in your bedrooms first, and then every year replace a couple of rooms. And then over 5 years, you've done the whole house. And the reason the windows are expensive is that you have to take apart the trim on the outside, take the window out. You have to put a new window in, put the trim back up, and then you have to dispose of the old window. So that's why the process of replacing windows is so expensive. And we just want people to be mindful of that.
And then as buyer's agents, when we're walking around the outside of the house, we are getting up close to any of the window sills that we can physically reach and just running a finger along it, checking for any rot. You can check the ones upstairs as well, just by opening the window and kind of sticking your head out and looking around. Now, the rot on trim is not catastrophic.
Right.
Oftentimes, if it's just started, you can fill it in with some wood filler or Bondo and paint it over and just forget that it happened and just monitor it over the next, 10 years. But if you have a significant amount of rot, like enough that you can stick a whole finger in, it's probably worth replacing just to make sure that you're keeping your house watertight. And, replacing wood rot on the outside of a house is something that everybody has to do. And there are some areas that are more prone to it than others. And windows are just one of those places.
Right.
So we recommend keeping an eye on the trim, especially if you're using a window AC that's going to be dripping water out of the back of it. Just monitoring where any water is dripping to make sure that you're not creating an area of rot. And the best way to prevent rot is to keep your house painted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Joanne, this was great. This was a great education for buyers about windows. So we want to thank you for watching another edition of Coffee with Tom and Joanne. I'm Tom Matthews.
And I'm Joanne Toronto. Cheers.